Saul Canelo Alvarez against Edgar Berlanga on the 14th of September. There's a few weeks left for this fight to happen. The press conferences have started, and so let's talk about it. Edgar Berlanga, I remember seeing highlights of these first round knockouts he was keeping up over there at Top Rank through 18 and 19, and before I first saw him fight in 2019 against this Barbosa Donny, journeyman Donny, it reminded me of Mike Tyson back in the day when I used to see highlights of his knockouts before I first saw him fight against Trevor Berbick. I was 8 years old, man. I was thinking, they're really hyping this guy up. They're proper hyping up this guy. First round knockouts. Who are these guys he's knocking out though? I mean, obviously Tyson weren't knocking out no somebodies, but he was knocking them out. And I'm thinking, who's these guys he's knocking out? Let's see him step up. Then he stepped up a little bit. He just stepped up a tad against a guy named Demond Nicholson, who had a little bit more know-how about himself in the ring. Took him the full 8 rounds, because at this time he was still doing 8-rounders. He wasn't even a 10-round fighter as yet. I'm thinking, is he a hype job? I think Top Rank might have thought that as well, because they let him go, and subsequently Eddie and Matchroom picked him up. Now, he hasn't had the necessary bring-along fights to say that he's ready for such a fight. At the same time, he's got the fight, so we're here. He's been fast-tracked. His last 2 fights was Jason Quigley and Patrick McCrory. Jason Quigley, he won on the unanimous decision, went the full 12 rounds. He's had 2 12-round scheduled fights. He's gone the distance once with Jason Quigley. El Animal, I rate Jason Quigley. Edgar's last fight was against a guy called Patrick McCrory. Never ever heard of him in life. And Edgar stopped him in the 6th round. So, for me, he should have been fighting a Chris Eubanks Jr., who thinks he needs a big fight, so this could have been an eliminator for a Canelo fight. Even David Benavidez. He should have been fighting a David Benavidez, someone of this kind of stature, before fighting a Saul Canelo Alvarez fight. But, as they say, you don't get what you're worth, you get what you negotiate. And he's negotiated his way into this fight with Saul Canelo Alvarez, who is basically the biggest star in boxing worldwide, to be honest with you. Saul Canelo Alvarez turned pro when he was 16 years old at 140, and he's slowly but surely made a name for himself, becoming one of the biggest names, if not the biggest. I believe he is the biggest name in boxing at the moment. He's gone through all of the weight classes, winning titles at all of them. He got made really, really famous when he lost to Floyd Mayweather. Before losing to Floyd Mayweather, he had already beaten Alfonso Gomez. He'd already beaten Shane Mosley, Jose Cito Lopez. He beat Austin Trout. Then he fought Floyd Mayweather. Lost to Floyd Mayweather on a majority decision. One ref gave it a draw. It was clearly not a draw. But he done well against Floyd, even though he was the bigger man. I think there was some sort of catch weight situation in that, but whatever the weather, they fought. He lost, but then he made a name for himself even more so in that fight. And subsequently went on to fight a host of fighters to bring his name up, beating some legends on the way. He beat Erislan De Lara, who a lot of people think he lost that fight, but he won and he got the decision. Knocked out James Kirkland badly. Had a unanimous decision against the legend Miguel Cotto. He knocked out Amir Khan. And then he decided, after beating Beefy, he decided he wants to go higher up in the weight classes. Goes up to middleweight after I would call it a Mexican showpiece fight against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. at some catch weight of 164 pounds, where Chavez Jr. usually fights at light heavyweight, which is 175 pounds. So that was a crazy one. He got drained to come and have this all Mexican clash of the legends or something like this. His dad, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., is the legend. And Junior fighting Saul was some sort of legendary fight, whatever. Big money fight in America and Mexico. And after that, he got back serious and had 2 back-to-back fights with Gennady Golovkin. A lot of people say that he lost the first fight. I don't believe so. I watched it. I thought it was a draw. Had that fight with Golovkin. It turned out to be a split decision draw. One gave it to Canelo, one gave it to Golovkin, and one judge made it actually a draw. Fought Golovkin again when he got 2 decisions going his way. So he got a majority decision win. One ref called it a draw. Got a majority decision win, which I believe was the case. Then he went up to super middleweight. So he started off at junior welterweight. He's gone from junior welterweight to welterweight to super welterweight, junior middleweight. Then he's gone up to middleweight, had 2 fights with Golovkin, which basically unified the division. It was a unification fight. It didn't make him undisputed because he still had 1 belt to go. He didn't get to have that fight for whatever political reason. We're not going to go into that. He then went up to 168 super middleweight. So he's gone up 4 weight classes. He's in his 4th weight class where he's now winning his 3rd title. He didn't win a title at welterweight. He won his first title at super welterweight, junior middleweight. So it's not his 3rd title he was winning because he only went up to super middleweight at this point to fight Rocky Fielding, which he knocked him out in 3 rounds. Rocky Fielding from the UK knocked him out in 3 rounds. Then he came back down to middleweight to have a fight against Danny Jacobs to defend, I think it was the IBF title he had to defend. Against Danny Jacobs, he had a unanimous decision win. Then he jumped up 2 weight classes from middleweight to light heavyweight because he saw some low-hanging fruit in Sergey Kovalev. The Crusher wasn't the Crusher anymore. He had just had a battle, right, with Anthony Yard, who almost knocked him out, but subsequently got knocked out in the 11th round by Sergey. Sergey was very battle-tested and war-torn, but had to have this fight against Saul Canelo Alvarez. He didn't have to, but he chose to, obviously, because
payday, you want payday, I know that.
He has the fight. He gets knocked out in the 11th round. So now, Canelo has 1 belt at junior middleweight, and now light heavyweight. Then he comes back down to super middleweight and goes on a tear of beating all the champions at that weight. Starting with Callum Smith, who had the WBA title and the WBC Diamond. Actual WBC title was vacant because David Benavidez lost the belt by having marijuana in his system or being overweight. Okay? Then he had to have a defense of it against Avni Yildirim, which is a situation because David Benavidez, it's a joke thing. He had to defend his belt against Avni Yildirim. Then he fought Billy Joe Saunders for the WBO belt, Caleb Plant for the IBF belt, making history, becoming the first Mexican-born fighter to become undisputed in the 4-belt era as a super middleweight. He then jumps up again, because this guy's all about legendary fights. He wants to go and be dominant everywhere. So he jumps up again to 175-pound light heavyweight and fights Dimitri Bivol, and he loses a unanimous decision in a hard-fought 12-round fight. So after this, he has a touch of a rest, not even that long of a rest. He's out for about 4 months, comes back and has the trilogy with Gennady Golovkin. Everybody said, you need to fight Gennady Golovkin, you need to fight Gennady Golovkin. He said, Gennady Golovkin has to come up here and fight me up here. Okay? Which is at 168 pounds super middleweight. He beats Golovkin again, a lot more convincing than the other win. No argument there. He then goes back to defending his titles IBF, WBC, WBO, and WBA, and he defends it against John Ryder. John Ryder got himself into the position of being the WBO mandatory because he fights Zach Parker. When he fights Zach Parker, beats Zach Parker, he then gets to be number one contender for Saul Canelo Alvarez's WBO title. Has the fight, loses the fight in a hard-fought 12-rounder. Unanimous decision loss. Ryder was actually down in the 5th. I remember Canelo dropping him. So he loses that fight. And Canelo marches on to then have another defense of his unified titles against Jamal Charlo. Now, Jamal Charlo weren't supposed to be the one to fight him. It was supposed to be his brother Jamal. But his brother Jamal said, I've got mental health issues and I'm injured, blah, 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 blah. So Jamal said, I'm going to defend my brother's honor and go up there and have this fight. They sold it as undisputed versus undisputed because Jamal was undisputed at junior middleweight. He went up there and basically didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. He lost every single round. He didn't do anything. I can't believe they were giving him rounds. I think the cards read something like 118, 109 or 119, 108. Like just losing everything. Plus he got dropped in the 7th round. He was taking so much punishment, he got dropped in the 7th round. Cool. Then he has another title defense against Jaime Munguia, who's also come up from junior middleweight, through middleweight, up to super middleweight to fight Canelo Alvarez. Now, everybody wants Canelo to fight David Benavidez. But David Benavidez should have got himself in the position to fight from a long time ago. Because when Canelo had to defend the super middleweight WBC title against Avni Yildirim, that was supposed to be David Benavidez. But David Benavidez, who had the WBC title, lost the title on the scales once, and then he lost the title by failing a drug test. He got tested positive for having marijuana in his system. So he could have been had this fight with Canelo, but he lost the belt. So when Canelo came up to the super middleweight division to fight the champions, he had dropped the belt. That's why it was vacant when he fought Callum Smith. So with that being said, Canelo's always been like, nah, I ain't fighting that guy. I don't want to fight nobody from Mexico. I don't want to fight nobody from Mexico. Which didn't make sense because he ended up fighting Jaime Munguia, who is from Mexico. But I just think that I don't think he likes David Benavidez. For some reason, he doesn't like David Benavidez, or he doesn't like David Benavidez's team, or both, but he just will not fight David Benavidez for some reason. So now he's fighting Edgar Berlanga because this is his choice. I believe that all these fights that he's had to this point has given him the ability to choose to fight whoever he wants. And to be fair to you, I can't blame him. Do whatever you want, my brother. You need a little bit of easy street right now. After all those fights, he went up to super middleweight, and within a year, within 12 months, he unified the whole division. All them champions were up there before, jostling and pretending and not having the fights that they were supposed to have to unify the division. Really and truly, Canelo should have been going up there to fight the undisputed champion up there. But the likes of Callum Smith and Billy Joe Saunders weren't fighting each other. Caleb Plant and David Benavidez were making noises about they were going to fight each other, but it has to be pay-per-view, so they need to build it. Let it marinate and all this rubbish. These type of things that make me don't like what's going on with boxing, that make me say it's getting on my nerves. Canelo just went up there and said, right, I'm fighting all of you this year or within 12 months. And so said, so done. And he beat all of them and collected all of the belts and then became undisputed. Okay? With that all done and said and over, he now has the ability to fight who he wants when he wants. And now he is fighting Edgar Berlanga, who doesn't deserve this fight and who I believe will get stopped in the first half of the fight. I believe Edgar Berlanga is going to get knocked out in the, I can't even say. It could be as early as the 1st or 2nd, and it could be as late as the 5th or 6th. I don't think Edgar is going to see the 7th round. I could be wrong, but I believe that he's going to get knocked out before round 7. I've been wrong before. I've been wrong many a time. I've been wrong with the wins, and I've also been wrong with, even though I might get the win right, I've been wrong with what round a man will get knocked out with, because certain times he doesn't even get knocked out. But I believe that Edgar is going to get slapped in this fight on the 14th. He's saying some crazy stuff about how he dream about, he said he dream about Canelo, bro. He said he dreamt that he was having a fight and Canelo was outside, and he turned to his friend and said, "You see that guy in the ring there? Me and him are going to make history." Brethren, stop dreaming about man, boy. You're out here dreaming about man. Bruh, you're dreaming about the...
Payday, payday. You want payday? I know that.
But anyway, we'll talk about the fight close as it gets closer. But this is one to look out for on the 14th of September. I will see you guys in the next video.